Sheriff Dicus from San Bernardino is next.
But first, if you have legal matters that involve firearms, then you need to call California's firearm lawyer, John Dillon. If you have questions about red flag laws, gun registration, gun transportation, or maybe you just need to know that your guns are California compliant, call our trusted firearms attorney, John Dillon. John Dillon specializes in California gun laws. 760-642-7150, or you can just visit him at his website at DillonLawGP.com.
All right, kids, it's election season, and one of the most important elections for gun owners is sheriff. There's I think just about I think all 58 counties are re-electing or electing a sheriff. So recently, Inland Empire Gun Owners, the sister organization for Orange County Gun Owners and San Diego County Gun Owners, endorsed Sheriff Dicus. So we wanted to have him come on the show and talk to him and congratulate him. Sheriff, are you there?
I am here. Thank you.
How are you, sir?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. Congratulations on your endorsement.
No, thank you. I appreciate the gun owners trusting me, and I'm very excited to do the job.
Now, it's an open seat, right?
It is an open seat. I was actually appointed to it when my predecessor, John McMahon, retired, and I'm carrying out the rest of his current term right now, which is basically through about January 3rd of next year.
Nice. Okay, so, but obviously you have to run and get elected. You've been appointed when McMahon left, but now you have to run and officially get elected. How does that feel? Is this your first election ever?
Oh, it's my first election, and I can tell you as the undersheriff, I thought I did a pretty good job watching out for the sheriff in terms of politics and things that were coming at us, but it is different when it's directly aimed at you for sure.
How does it? Has there been some mudslinging?
No, not necessarily mudslinging. It's just you are involved. I would like to just do the job, but you do get involved, obviously, in politics. Yeah. And I just recently testified up in Sacramento, and that's quite the experience.
What did you testify about?
If you can talk about it.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I can talk about it. There was a Assembly Bill 1599 that was supposed to repeal Prop 47, which was a Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Act. Mm-hmm. And it kind of duped the voters because it certainly sounds like something you'd want to vote for. But that was the proposition that changed everything from felonies to misdemeanor in relationship to property crimes and also possession of drugs.
My understanding is there's actually at least one group that is doing a ballot initiative to repeal portions of that. Did they vote on it in Sacramento yet, or are they still futzing around?
Well, and so that's what I'm concerned about. 1599 was the bill that would send that back to the voters and let the voters decide if it should be repealed. Mm-hmm. So I testified in front of the Public Safety Committee for the Assembly, and I went up there and explained what was going on in our county, and asked them to follow through with sending this to the voters. But before I even left the parking lot, they voted it down. In other words, not to send it to the voters.
Not to send it to the voters. So what is the impact? If you had to, give us a minute and a half on what you've seen with the Sheriff's Department, what is the impact?
Well, so the impact really is capacity. After prison realignment in 2011 and then continued realignment with Prop 47, the folks that we could probably help the most by getting substance abuse treatment, it just isn't available to them. We used to have drug court. Essentially, the judge could hang a felony over someone's head and tell them, hey, if you go get drug treatment from drug court, then you bring back your certificate that you've actually participated, and a lot of people would be returned to sobriety at that point. Then the judge would knock the felony down to a misdemeanor, and they could continue their lives.
So Sheriff, yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt, but what is their reasoning? Has anybody ever explained that to you?
Well, their reasoning is they don't think that it's a victimless crime. They shouldn't have anybody in jail over this. And when I say capacity, I think we could do something different, but it's going to look something like a conservatorship where folks from the mental health and medical industry are working with these people, but the judge or the bench has to be able to essentially sentence them to these facilities and not just keep them on the street. Because what we're seeing now, without any treatment, they're just rotting in their own skin.
What are we going to go ahead? I'm sorry.
Well, no, it's the same question.
Go ahead.
What is I just don't understand their logic to allow these people to just wither away.
Well, logic in Sacramento, those are two
Is that an oxymoron?
Yeah, two great tastes that don't usually go together. Hey, Sheriff, I got to tell you, big, huge question here. Maybe it's definitely above my pay grade. Maybe it's above yours as well. What are we going to do about drugs in general? It seems like there's such an enormous issue. I get the idea of, I'm just going to paraphrase. Maybe we disagree that it's a victimless crime, but I get the idea of, hey, if somebody wants to do drugs, maybe there's a liberty issue or whatever. But it is an enormous issue. What's the problem? What are we going to do? It doesn't seem to be getting better. The laws don't seem to be making it better. What's the issue here? What do we do?
Well, I'll tell you what it all starts with really is the state realigning, and this started with mental health back in 1991, then continued with prison realignment. And essentially, if you really want to break the definition of that down, it's what's traditionally the state's responsibility that get pushed down to local counties and city governments. Mm-hmm. So it's really going to be up to us to build this capacity and provide for some of these facilities. You've already heard the governor talk about involving judges, which could be a good thing, but it could also be realignment again. If the judges have the ability to sentence somebody to substance abuse treatment, for instance, mm-hmm. There's still no capacity for that. We have to build facilities. So I think that's what you're going to see happen is that counties and cities are going to continue to do what they've been doing, and that's trying to solve the state problems because they've been thrust on their shoulders.
If you had to guess, what percentage of your jails are prisoners who committed a drug-related crime? You have any guesstimate?
I don't even think I could guess at that. Many of the crimes we investigate, of course, come back to some drug-related crime. Mm-hmm. But what I can tell you is, right after in 2015, which Proposition 47 passed in 2014, mm-hmm. one of the things we noticed during prison realignment, we essentially keep people in our jails here locally that, as society, we're afraid of. The ones that we can probably help, the ones we're just irritated at, if you want to call it that, with substance abuse problems, they don't even stay in my jail longer than 30 days. So when you equate that to programming that we used to be able to do with them, substance abuse, anger management, English as a second language, getting their GED, they don't stay long enough to be able to finish a program, just essentially start it before they're back out on the streets.
Interesting. Wow.
If I was a prisoner, I'd want to stay in. Well, how else are you going to get yourself straightened out if you need 90% of these people need help? They can't do it on their own.
I wonder what percentage of prisoners
actually would like to stay and maybe follow through with a program.
Kind of embrace it and go, hey, maybe this is my big shot. That's interesting.
I don't know.
So San Bernardino, that's by landmass. Is it the biggest county in the nation? Is that right?
Yes, the largest county in the continental United States. It takes 20,000 square miles and 4.5 hours to drive across.
Wow. So what kind of challenges does that present a sheriff's department?
Well, in terms of, calls and response times, I have some patrolled beat areas out in the Barstow area that cover, 5,000 square miles for a deputy sheriff. Now, granted, it's a lot of rural area. But same thing, even as we get closer to Victorville, my Victor Valley, which is the county areas, you're talking about Phelan, Lucerne Valley, and those areas, those beats are about 1,500 square miles for that station. So we cover a lot of territory. And having substations put strategically across the county and making sure we have the correct number of folks, and then obviously always working well with our partners. When you work those type of vast areas, you need to work well with the CHP, BLM, U.S. Forest Service, those kind of folks.
You're not going to walk that beat.
Yeah.
Yes, that is definitely not a walking beat for sure.
That's how my dad started, in a walking beat. So I'm just thinking, yep, he couldn't walk that one. Wow.
So what's the most urban, what's the biggest city in San Bernardino? I guess would it be San Bernardino?
Well, San Bernardino City's big. They have a municipal police department there, but some of our big cities, Rancho Cucamonga, we have Chino Hills out there far on the west end. So we certainly have a number of urban areas, then mountain resorts, and then vast desert areas as well.
So what's the biggest difference between calls in rural areas and calls in urban areas?
Well, call volume mostly. Sometimes in our rural areas, the call volume's not quite as high. But it's commensurate in terms of drive time, what we just talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. So the deputies are having to drive longer distances in the rural areas. And then when you're talking about urban areas, there's also generally more of a presence there, so more people to take some of those calls. But I can tell you anywhere where we're patrolling right now, all of the men and women that are out there doing the tough job, are all moving quite a bit, going call to call.
How are you doing for employment? I mean, did you lose any sheriffs through this last 2 years?
Oh, yeah. Employment for any law enforcement agency right now is difficult, and a lot has to do with, folks retiring, of course, the pandemic, and then a lot of it has to do with just how the media has portrayed law enforcement. It's not as attractive as a job as it once was. Now, I have seen a silver lining. We just did a huge employment drive for both deputy sheriffs and also our professional staff. And I had about 500 folks show up to that.
Wow.
And I was inspired. It was raining and cold, and I didn't see one of these people turn around and go back to their cars. So I think we're in a good space, and I'm going to hire as many of those folks as I can.
Sure.
And make sure we're fully staffed for whatever California brings at us.
I think I saw a picture of you on social media standing with some new folks, some new deputies that were, I don't know if it was their first day or first week, and you were kind of congratulating them on their new career.
Yeah, so what it was is we did a one-stop shop, so they were able to do their physical agility test, get assigned a background investigator, and work with HR of the county to get everything done so that we could, get them into the system and try to hire them as quickly as possible. Now, in the department as a whole right now, about 100 positions vacant, so I could certainly use their help.
Now, did the BLM thing, all the, the mostly peaceful protests that Joe likes to point out, they were mostly peaceful protests, whatever that means. Did that whole thing have an impact on your department's morale?
Well, anything that goes through the media right now that's negative towards law enforcement always has an effect on everyone's morale.
Yeah.
Particularly during, that period of time. I got to tell you, my African-American deputies out there standing on the riot lines during some civil disobedience and things we did were absolutely treated horribly, oftentimes by folks from their culture. Sure. And I got to tell you, they don't get a break. They get just verbally assaulted at work, and I couldn't be more proud of all my folks. But the patience that they exhibit during those periods of time were just they're the gold standard.
That's why you picked them.
Yeah,
that's why you picked them. Hey, are you frustrated with your elected officials slowly chipping away at your Second Amendment rights? Want to do something meaningful, something tangible? Join Inland Empire Gun Owners. Our numbers are growing, and we're spreading across California. For all you folks in Riverside and San Bernardino, learn more at inlandempiregunowners.com. Visit the website. Get on the mailing list. Join an event where you can connect with other gun owners and help support the Second Amendment. inlandempiregunowners.com.
All right, we're interviewing the Sheriff of San Bernardino County, Sheriff Dicus, who's also running. He was appointed, took over for Sheriff McMahon. Now he's running to take the seat permanently. So how long have you been, let's talk about your career. How long have you been with the Sheriff's Department?
So I've been working with the Sheriff's Department for 30 years, but I have about 34 years experience, both in the military. I worked for the federal government and the Department of Veterans Affairs for a little while before coming over to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department.
You must have, in 30 years in the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, you must have seen a lot of interesting things. You must have a ton of interesting stories.
Oh, many, many interesting stories, and just watching the Inland Empire grow for the last 30 years.
What's the biggest change in Inland Empire?
Well, probably just really becoming more urbanized. I've seen our desert areas, particularly in Victorville, Hesperia, and Apple Valley, just really explode and still continue to grow. Mm-hmm. There's still affordable housing there. And seeing all of our valley areas have grown quite a bit as well. But I think just after the pandemic alone, I think they estimated about 33,000 people have come to the Inland Empire. And just by the freeways and the traffic, I would agree with them.
I was thinking about it. I mean, there's really, San Bernardino, I think a lot of people, San Bernardino is what you drive through to get to Vegas for a lot of Southern Californians. But if you think about it, there are a couple movies that were based in San Bernardino, like the Aaron Brockovich one, and then McDonald's started in San Bernardino. And I mean, there's a lot going on.
We have to watch you when you start doing movie trivia, because
movies?
We never know what's going to come out.
No Red Dawn connection yet.
Yeah, I know. You got us whacked off air last week because of that.
But there's a lot but Sheriff, there's a lot going on in San Bernardino. I mean, and you guys stretch all the way out to the river, Needles and go all the way out to the river, all the way in, basically touch LA.
A lot of big events go on out there, out in Johnson Valley. You got King of the Hammers, and you've got a lot of motorsports in your general area.
Oh, absolutely. We have we're a great event venue.
Yep.
With San Manuel Amphitheater. You mentioned King of the Hammers for off-road. Very, very popular out here. Mountain resorts in Big Bear Lake, Arrowhead. If you want to play, San Bernardino County is a place to play.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize. And isn't it amazing when they go to Johnson Valley and they build the city, and then when it's over, they leave? It's like they were never there.
Oh, it is amazing. If you've ever seen King of the Hammers, I mean, they bring in internet and all these other things to this desolate place, and it really does become an entire city over that period of time they're here.
So I know this is a silly question, but I am the car guy. How are these fuel prices affecting your budget?
That's a good question.
That is something we are very wary of right now. Generally, coming into this fiscal year, we budget for about $4 to $4.50 a gallon, and obviously we're well above that. So there are other areas that we may have to, crimp down in. Usually what I do quarterly is I get reports on the budget, and then we make the according adjustments based on what's going on. But obviously answering calls for the public is something we're always going to do. So we have to account for that. And I have great support from our Board of Supervisors here in San Bernardino County. I can't thank them enough, and they're constantly working with me as it relates to budgetary issues. And I know other sheriffs have had issues with their boards. I thank God every day that's not what happens in. So,
okay, now, of course, we're a gun show, and you got endorsed by a gun group. So let's talk about CCWs. I know McMahon was a big fan, and he made it relatively easy so that basically if you could pass the background check and string together a few sentences about your good cause, and take the class, and for the most part you could get a CCW in San Bernardino County. You guys were, I'm gonna say you guys were as close to shall issue as you could get, even though you can't be shall issue in California. You still have to provide some kind of good cause. So. Good program. Everybody's been, super helpful. Our Inland Empire teaches a class on how to get your CCW. You guys have been super responsive to us. Can't say enough great things about the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff's Office, and your CCW program. What are your thoughts? Is it going to continue? Would you like to make some changes? Are you a fan of CCWs?
Huge fan of CCWs. It's absolutely going to continue. John and I saw CCWs about the exact same. I actually go a little bit further. I of course, I'm a Second Amendment supporter, but I think it's critical to public safety. We just talked early on in the show about how vast our county is, and I can tell you that the men and women that work for this department are absolutely exceptional, and they want to be there for any citizen in San Bernardino County's worst day to protect them. But the reality is if we don't make it there in time, I think it's critical to public safety that I at least give you as the individual that lives in this county the ability to protect yourself.
So most studies that I've seen show that CCW holders commit less crime than the general population. In fact, they're very low incidences of any kind of crime being committed by somebody that holds a concealed carry permit. Is that your experience running the Sheriff's Department and being in the Sheriff's Department for 30 years?
Well, that's certainly our experience, but where that comes from is we're very serious about the background check for any CCW holders when they come through. We make sure their veracity is checked, and not everybody gets a CCW. So we look at that, and most of the people that get those certainly have led lives that allow for that in terms of their character, and we support our citizens here. So I would say absolutely yes, and even the CCWs that we've issued, it's been very rare, thank God, that a CCW holder has had to defend themselves, but we have had that happen, and I'm glad we were able to give them the CCW just for that purpose.
So the good cause isn't a hurdle, but you guys definitely do a thorough background check. What sorts of things are you looking for in a background check that you want to make people aware of?
Well, certainly we don't want to make we want to make sure that they, number one, can carry a gun, no felony convictions or anything like that. But we also check in terms of veracity. If you have had a misdemeanor conviction, for instance, that doesn't always knock you out of the running. So we want to make sure that, people disclose those things. And if folks tell the truth and something happened very early on in their lives, that certainly is something that we wouldn't hold them back for. But we want to make sure that they're telling the truth. They disclose addresses and things that are within our county and that they actually live at those addresses. I mean, we check it all.
So the rule,
I think right now I'm sitting on about 11,000 CCW holders.
Wow. The rule of thumb, the thing I tell people is disclose any official interaction you've had with law enforcement or the courts throughout your entire life. Is that good guidance?
That is fantastic guidance, because most of the letters I send denying it is generally someone that didn't disclose those things. I don't know if they feel they think they drop off or that nobody will remember it happened so long ago. You are absolutely right. It would be better to over-report than under-report for sure.
Every county says that. Every county, Joe, you and I have seen every county, San Diego, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, other counties that we've talked to, the number one advice they give is disclose everything. And that most of the time, I don't know about most, but a lot of the time when there's a denial based on, a lot of times denials are based on applicants not disclosing things. That if they had just simply said, hey, this happened 10 years ago and, here's what happened, here are the consequences, here's how I'm a better person now. If they'd have just simply disclosed it, it wouldn't be a problem. We talk about that a lot, Sheriff. We really try to get that point across to people, which is what that's how we came up with that rule of thumb, is to, again, disclose any official interaction you've had with courts or police, or law enforcement throughout your entire life, even if it's been expunged, even if it's been, it happened when you were a minor, even if it's, happened in a different state, even if it was 25 years ago and you think everybody forgot. No matter what, disclose every official interaction you've had with courts or law enforcement throughout your entire life.
And that, you guys, I so appreciate you doing that, because that's exactly it. I visit just about every CCW class personally, and I talk to all those folks, and I thank them for participating in the program. But at the same time, I also remind them that not everybody that applies gets to make it to that class. As a matter of fact, this morning, we made adjustments for our Jewish community and our Seventh-day Adventist community, because we were teaching the classes on Saturday and it didn't give them the opportunity. So today was, I think, the third Sunday that we've done, just to make sure that all of our citizens get the opportunity and we're not interrupting their religious days that they go and worship, so that they can have access as well. But while I visit them, I remind them that not everybody gets to sit in the chairs that they're sitting in. And today we just put 137 people through the program. Wow,
137 people. Is that typically, is that like a month for you guys, or is that a couple of weeks, or what typically 130 is what? What's your average? Do you have any idea?
Well, generally we try to do a couple of classes a month, and I would say the average is probably a little bit more than that, probably about 150 per class, and sometimes even higher. We try to fill the classrooms with about 150 each, and there's still a lot of folks in line. So, matter of fact, to make sure we service everybody, their first time when they come in to qualify and go through the class, we do that. We're very hands-on and want to make sure folks are safe. But I have so many CCW holders that when they re-qualify to re-up their CCW have had to bring in other service providers.
So, Sheriff, you have 13,000. Orange is up to like 30,000. San Diego is up to 6,000. I think Riverside's close to you guys, somewhere around 10 or 13,000, something like that. CCW holders, LA's issuing now. It is growing huge. We were just at the seminar. I don't know if San Bernardino had a crew there, but we were at a seminar up in Vacaville that we sponsored, talking about the state and running CCWs, that sort of thing. I think one thing we're going to need is some of the sheriffs and to band together and tell DOJ, you guys have got to put some employees in increase your employees for the CCW division, because this bottleneck is going to turn into a problem real quick. I think they just have a handful of people in working on that at California DOJ. The slowdowns are ridiculous. But as this thing grows, I think we're going to organize an effort and talk to the sheriffs and see if we can increase the DOJ's budget on just CCW, just their CCW section. Probably have to double or triple.
Sure. I know I've had to increase my staff as well to support all the citizens wanting a CCW, and with hiring, really across the state. And like I told you earlier, as it relates to realignment, there's a lot of things the state's responsible for. They're going to have to certainly get some more employees and staff that up. because I don't see it slowing, at least in terms of our county. We're all in.
Sheriff, really appreciate you being on the show. If you're listening and you want to help the sheriff get reelected, join Inland Empire Gun Owners. If you go to inlandempiregunowners.com, help us help him. And then, Sheriff, how do they find your website and help your campaign?
My website, you can donate on it. It is Shannon Dicus, ShannonDicus, the number 4, sheriff.com.
And we have a fundraiser.
Tell you how much I thank all the gun owners.
Absolutely. We have a fundraiser coming up for you. So check out Inland Empire. Come to our fundraiser. You can meet the sheriff, shoot with them, and have a whole lot of fun with us. Thank you, Sheriff. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you, gun owners. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel. Or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.